Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Easy Learn, and today's topic is algebra, within which we're going to be doing quadratic equations, and it's practice time today. The quadratic equations can be solved using three methods as discussed earlier, that is the zero factor property, completing the square, and the quadratic formula. I've already explained how to solve quadratic equations using all these three methods. You can check out the link in the description below and go understand the concepts first, and then you can come back for solving. Today's question is the surface area of the cuboid is 270 cubic square centimeter. Show x squared plus 4x minus 45 is equal to 0. That's first part of the question. The second part says find x, and the third part says find the volume of the cuboid. Now, as you can see, here we have a cuboid on the left, and it has these specific lengths, that is the x plus 6, the x, and another x. Now it says the surface area of the cuboid is 270, which means that I need to first of all check out my surface area representation so that I can put these values in and probably get this equation that they've given here, that is x squared minus plus 4x minus 45. Now for that, I need to know what is the surface area of a cuboid. So the surface area of a cuboid is 2 times length times the width plus length times the height plus width times the height. That is the formula for surface area of a cuboid. Now, if you look here, the length of the cuboid is x plus 6, the height is x, and the width is x again. So I gotta put that in, and the surface area value is already given to me as 270 centimeters square, which means that in place of my surface area, I'm gonna put 270 equals 2 stays the way it is times now the length, which is x plus 6. So let me just write x plus 6 times the width, so my width is x, that plus the length again, that is x plus 6 times the height, and the height is, let me just label here, this is the length, this is the height, and this is the width. So my x plus 6 again with the height and the width are the same, so x again here, plus the width with the height, so width is x, and the height again is also x. So this is how I'm going to take all my lengths inside this formula. Now, the very first thing that I can do for this one is that the 2 here is in multiplication with the whole bracket. I can take the 2 to the other side. And because the 2 is in multiplication here, when it goes to the other side, it turns into division. So I'm just going to do 270 divided by 2, and that gives me 135. So if I do 270 divided by 2, it gives me 135 is equal to all of this information here. Now this information, if I have to work it out, what am I going to do first? I'm going to do x times the x here, so that is x squared, then another x times 6, because there are two variables or numbers inside one bracket, and then that is being multiplied with x, so the x is not only multiplied with just the x or just the 6, it has to be multiplied with both of them. So x times x is x squared plus x times 6 is 6x, and then this part is done. Now I have to move on to this one. Now again, x times x gives me plus x squared, x times 6 gives me plus 6x. And then there is another plus x times x is going to give me x squared. I'm just going to write plus x squared. Now that I have this information, I need to add up my like terms. So x squared is a like term with another x squared and with another x squared. So there's like an invisible 1 with all these x's. So 1 plus 1 plus 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 1, 3. So I have 135 equals 3x squared plus, now this 6x and 6x is like terms to each other. So 6 plus 6 is a 12. So I'm just going to write 12x. Now what I have to do is, now here's what it looks like. There's an x squared. As soon as you see an x squared, you need to know that the arrangement is a quadratic, because there is an x squared involved. Wherever you see an x squared, that means that we're supposed to end up in a quadratic equation. And how does a quadratic equation looks like? quadratic equation looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. Now I already have 3x squared, let's say, in place of my ax squared, plus 12x in place of my bx, but I don't have a c here. My c is all the way on the other side, is equal to 135, but I need to take it over here with this so that I have a one specific quadratic equation. So when I do that, I'm going to do 3x squared plus 12x, and this 135 comes to the other side, so it turns into negative, and I have negative 135, because here was a positive taken to the other side becomes negative. Now if I look at this, this is a 3x squared plus a 12x minus a 135. Now referring back to the original question, it says that the answer is supposed to be x squared plus 4x minus 45, and here, as you can see, we have a 3x squared plus 12x minus 135. So what do we have to do? Now what you have to do is you basically need to simplify. Now what do I mean by simplify? You have to see that 3, 12, and 135, all of them should be coming in one specific table that would that would help us simplify it. Now in the table of 3, if I check out the table of 3, so 3 times 1 gives me 3, 3 times 4 gives me 12, and if I check what is 135 divided by 3, that is a 45, which means that I have got the right answer. It's just that I gotta simplify with the common factor between them, and the common factor is 3. So I'm going to do 3 times 1, 3. So when I have 1x squared is the same as x squared just, and 3 times 4 is 12x, so plus 4x, and then 3 times 45 gives me 135. So instead of 135, I have 45, so negative 45. So therefore, this is the final equation that I get: x squared plus 4x minus 45. And that obviously is equal to 0 because we already took the 135 to the other side. So over here, after the equal sign, we have a 0. So that is how I can simply prove that x squared plus 4x minus 45 is equal to 0. Now that I have got this piece of information, then the next thing I have to do is I gotta solve for x. It says find x. Now how do I find x? Now this is my quadratic equation, that is x squared plus 4x minus 45. Now one more tip is that it may be possible that using all of this method, maybe you missed out on something. You probably missed a sign or something happened, because of which you did not end up in x squared plus 4x minus 45. Let's suppose that happens. If such a situation occurs, do not worry. Even if you lose some of your marks here, make sure all your steps are clearly seen, so that maybe you can get, probably if this is out of 3 marks, maybe you can get like a 1 or 1.5 or 2 at least for showing up the work. And then if there's a mistake, they might cut your marks. But if you have, when they say find x, then you don't have to rely on the answer you got. You obviously have to see this one. You can just find your x using this equation, because you already have the equation. You just had to prove that you are supposed to get x squared plus 4x minus 45. But even if you're not able to prove it that well, or you have some mistake somewhere, you try and try and try and you still can't get it, it's okay. Just move on to find your x part, and then use this equation that they have given and use it to find your x, right? Now we have this particular equation. I'm going to get rid of all the stuff that I've written. Hope you've understood everything here. Okay, now we'll do this again. So we have, so the first part is done. I already showed you how you would work out finding out this, proving this equation. You have to just look at the surface area part. You have to work out on what's the formula for surface area of a cuboid, and then you put in all the x plus 6, x and x, and then take out your answer, equate it to 270, and you'll end up in x squared plus 4x minus 45. Now that I have this equation, now I need to work out the values of x. Now this is a quadratic equation. Now again, a quadratic equation can be solved using 3 methods already discussed, that is zero factor property, completing the square, and the quadratic formula. Now you can simply just put in the values and use the quadratic formula and get your answer, or you could also use the zero factor property. Completing the square is again too much work, so I mostly prefer the quadratic formula. But for a question like this, which is kind of very simple, quadratic formula is mostly used when you have bigger numbers, and maybe you might result in a decimal number or something. Then you go ahead with the quadratic formula, but zero factor property can also be used here. So I'm going to go with zero factor property. So let's say my equation is x squared plus 4x minus 45. Now if I gotta use the zero factor property on this, there is this specific rules that I gotta follow, that is a times c. Now, first of all, I got to figure out what's my a, b, and c in this particular equation. So a is, as you can see, ax squared. So whatever number is attached with the x squared is my a. So here there's nothing, which means it's an invisible one. So a is 1. And then I have my b is equal to this one, that is 4, because it says bx. So there's a 4x. So 4 becomes my b. And my c is 45. Or, I mean, negative 45. Now, what's the next thing? The next step is the first step is a times c. A times c means you're going to multiply a with the c. A is 145 is the c, so 45 times 1 is just 45. Now once I have my 45, step number 1 is done. Step number 2 is find the factors of ac, that is find the factors of 45. Now which two numbers join together to give me a 45? Now 45 can be, if I just try, okay, 15 and 3 can give me 45, right? If I do 15 times 3, it gives me 45. And then I have a 9 times a 5, that gives me a 45. So I think that's pretty much it. And obviously 1 times a 45 also gives me a 45, right? Now once I have a few of my factors listed down, now I need to see that adding or subtracting those factors should give me my b. What's my b? 4. Which means that if I add up, let's say if I do 1 plus 45, it gives me a 46. If I do 45 minus 1, it gives me a 44, which means 1 and 45 are not in the list. Now if I try 15 and 3, if I do 15 plus 3, I'm getting an 18. If I do 15 minus 3, I'm getting a 12. Again, not in the list. No 15 and 3, no 1 and 45. Can I go ahead with 9 and 5? If I do 9 plus 5, I get a 14. No, not an option. If I do 9 minus 5, I get a 4. Do I get my B when I do 9 minus 5? Yes. If I do 9 minus 5, I am getting my 4, which means I can use plus 9 and minus 5, right? Because 9 minus 5 is giving me a 4. That's giving me my b back. Now, what's the last step? Split b and replace with the factors. Now, this is my b, that is 4x. I gotta split it. For splitting the b, before splitting the b, I have my x squared here. That just comes down the way it is. Then I have my 45. That just comes down the way it is, negative 45. This b, that is 4x, splits into the two factors that I found. That is 9x. So I'm going to write x squared plus 9x. And then minus 5x. Why do I do minus 5x? Because 9 minus 5 is the one that is going to give me 4x, right? 9 minus 5 is going to give me 4. That's why I do 9x minus 5x. Now that I have this split part here with me, now I gotta take x squared plus 9x on one side and minus 5x minus 45 on the other side, and I gotta pick out the commons. Now between x squared plus 9x, what is the common value? X is common because this one, x squared, has two x's and 9x also has one x, so one x comes out as common. And inside I'm left with, now there were two x's inside, now I'm just left with one x, so I'm going to write just x, right? X times x gives me x squared plus, now from the 9x, I've taken out the x, so what's left? 9 is left. So x plus 9 here. So x times x gives me x squared. X times plus 9 gives me plus 9x, right? Now, similarly, now this one, 5x and 45. What is common between that? There is no x in 45, so I cannot take x as my common. But 5 can be taken as common because 45 5 is there, and then in the 45 has a factor 5, which means that 45 comes in the table of 5. So I can take 5 as common outside, and I'll take negative 5 because negative and negative are common inside as well. So 5 is common and the negative sign is common, so I'm going to take negative 5 outside. And inside I have, again, from negative 5x, if negative 5 is taken out, x is left inside. And then from 45, the negative sign is already taken outside, 5 is already taken outside, so 5 times 9 is 45, and negative sign is already outside, so I can just have a positive sign inside. And you can just recheck by trying it out, like negative 5 times x is negative 5x, and negative 5 times 9 gives me negative 45. So that means I'm on the right path. So I have negative 5 outside and x plus 9 goes inside. Now, as you can see, x plus 9 and x plus 9, they're both they're the same factors. So I just put them down as one single factor, saying that, okay, this is my x plus 9. And the other two factors that are standing outside, that is x and a minus 5, I put them as one single factor. So these are my two factors, that is x plus 9 and x minus 5. Now, here's the point. Still, we're not done with the question. It says find x, which means I got to find the value of my x. So x plus 9 and x minus 5, these are my two factors, not the values of x. Now I have to equate each factor is equal to 0 in order to find my value of x. So I'm going to do x plus 9 equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. Now 9 goes to the other side, so x is equal to, there's a positive 9 here, goes to the other side, turns into negative, so x is equal to minus 9, or x is equal to negative 5, goes to the other side, turns into positive, and x is equal to positive 5. That's pretty much it. I got my value of x. When it says find x, I got x equals either negative 9 or x equals positive 5. Now the last part says find the volume of the cuboid. Now what is the volume of the cuboid? Volume is length times the width times the height. Now that I have my values of x, my length is x plus 6, my width is let's say x, and my height is also x. I gotta choose which value do I use for my x over there in order to figure out the length and width and height. So obviously, if you consider these two values, then one is negative 9 and one is positive 5. You cannot use a negative 9 for a length or a width or a height. A height cannot be negative 9, right? Which means that this option, x equals minus 9, is ruled out. Which option can I use? I can use x equals 5 because 5 is positive, which means now I gotta replace my length with 5 here. Here my height also becomes 5 and my width also 5. So now my length is 5 plus 6, that is 11. And this height here is 5. And this width here also is 5. Now when I have to find the volume of the box, then volume is equal to the 5 plus 6 that I got, that is 11, times the length becomes 11, the width is 5, and the height is also 5. So my volume is supposed to be, you just gotta do 11 times 5, that gives me 275. And what is the unit that we gotta use? They already mentioned earlier for the surface area that it's centimeters squared, which means this was 11 centimeter, 5 centimeter, and another 5 centimeter. So centimeter times centimeter times centimeter is the volume, so which means it is a centimeter cubed. Therefore, the volume of my cuboid is 275 cubic centimeter. That is it. I got my x as negative 9 or positive 5. I'm going to use this positive 5 and figure out my volume, and my volume is now 275. And this showing part I already discussed how you have to go about. For finding the x, you use the zero factor property or use the quadratic formula. You're going to end up in negative 9 and negative and positive 5. Once you have your values, just take in the volume formula for the cuboid and then put in your length, width, and height, and then you will figure out your volume. That is pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching Easy Learn. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. If you have any questions, any confusions, you can drop them down in the comment section below. Thank you.